All right, great to have you back with us. UFC 302 betting preview presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Jon Anik alongside the future Hall of Famer, former two-division champion Henry Cejudo, and of course the great MMA handicapper, longtime veteran Vegas insider Nick Kalikas with us, of course, as well. Henry, when I say future Hall of Famer, it's got to be nice, right? You win belts in two divisions. You're not on the fence, right? It's like, you know, you're getting in. Like, eventually, someday, that call is coming in, and you'll be on the podium celebrating shortly thereafter, you know?
Yeah, of course. And you know what? You're not too far off too, John. John, for the amount of work that you've done, I'm sure you're going to be in there someday too. So if I could send it back to you, John, you're next.
All right, well, here's my research for today, champ. So UFC hits Newark, New Jersey, UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier, Saturday night, June 1, from The Rock. Last time UFC was in the Brick City, UFC 288, May of last year. And on that night, Henry, one judge thought that you did enough to regain your UFC bantamweight title.
Yeah, it was one judge, but not, it's just majority wins, man. Like, it's, but I will say this, John, if it came down to the fifth, the one judge didn't score the fifth round to me. I mean, it's what it is. I'm not mad at it.
All right. Humility off the top from Triple C. Nick, I hate to put you on the spot. Do you recall what your action was for Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo back at UFC 288?
Oh, I do, and it's documented as well. I was all over Cejudo. The value was on your side, baby, and we were that close of getting it. So no regrets at all. It's just one of those things that could have went either way. It was such a competitive fight, man. So, yeah, I was all over Cejudo there. It was definitely the bet to make for sure.
There you go. That's cool that you were on the Cejudo side. And you're right, it's all on the record. So even if you did not disclose that here today, somebody would have dug that up. All right, so UFC 302, the great Islam Makhachev, already potentially being mentioned with the all-time great lightweights, Khabib Nurmagomedov, BJ Penn, returning here for the first time since last October, making his third title defense, but first against a true lightweight, and it's Dustin Poirier. And Henry, Islam is a massive betting favorite. Just initial thoughts on the championship matchup we have here come Saturday night.
Oof, yeah, I think obviously Islam is a massive favorite, John, for a reason. I mean, the guy is, first of all, they called the fight knowing that everybody at 155 pounds is already locked in. Everybody has a fight. Armasurican was offered the fight. He refused to fight. He's like, you know what? I need a little bit more time to prepare for Islam. Is that a smart move? 100%. And now what did that do? They ended up bringing in a dangerous guy with powerful hands, a southpaw, and Dustin Poirier. Islam Makhachev did pick this fight for a reason. Again, I quote him. He says, I just want to stay busy. I want to continue to keep fighting. And it's the same reason why I wanted to fight Poirier. And you think about it too, though, John. John, he has Khabib in his corner. Maybe not literally in his corner, but he's coaching him. He's mentoring him. They fought a guy like Dustin Poirier before. When you fought a guy and your teammate has fought him, and I'm going to go back and talk about me and Aljamain and Merab, there's something that you know a little bit more than what the average coach would know.
Yeah. All right, Nick Kalikas, we will spit it over to you. Islam Makhachev, entrenched as a perhaps prohibitive betting favorite as usual. He opened minus 470. Now minus 650 on DraftKings Sportsbook. The comeback on Dustin Poirier plus 470. So those who bet Poirier plus 360 certainly wish they got a better number. Any thoughts on that type of line movement, maybe relative to your expectations at open?
Not really surprised, because what you're seeing is the pro bettors, the people that are in the mix, that are betting every week, all these UFC cards, they came in and took the perceived value on Makhachev on that side. They thought it was going to go up a little bit. And if you look at stylistic matchups, if you look at Poirier's kryptonite, it's kind of been a good ground game. And of course, Makhachev has an outstanding ground game. So not surprising that the pro bettors weren't hesitating to kind of lay that chalk and bet the line up a little bit. But make no mistake, you're going to see a lot of public action coming in the other way on Diamond.
All right, plenty more coming up on the main event. UFC 302 betting preview brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Quickly, I am going to rifle through the main card odds, and then we will dovetail back to the main event. So welterweight opener on pay-per-view, Randy Brown, the minus 175 betting favorite against Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, who comes back plus 145. At heavyweight, Jailton Almeida minus 278. Right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, Alexander Romanov is plus 225. Feature bout at middleweight, Kevin Holland back to 185. He's the minus 265 betting favorite against the plus 215 underdog Michal Oleksiejczuk. Middleweight co-main event, 5 rounds if needed. Sean Strickland, the number 1 contender, minus 245. Paulo Costa plus 200. And then, as we mentioned, Islam Makhachev minus 650, the betting favorite against Dustin the Diamond Poirier. So, Henry, we're going to get to your keys to victory for both guys, but just off the top, when it comes to handicapping this main event and paths to victory for Dustin Poirier, betting line suggests maybe there aren't that many paths to victory, but I don't want to sound disrespectful. What do you think Dustin Poirier is up against in terms of this overall mental, physical, emotional Islam Makhachev challenge?
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, could he get over that hump of getting I almost became champion. And obviously he was an entrant champion before, but what he's up against a guy like Islam Makhachev is, did you have the right training partners that could mimic a guy like that? Do you have somebody who is solid base, who has great defense, who is looking to attack offensively, but also look for his takedowns? And that's something that Islam has done very, very well. Even more so, even better than a guy like Khabib. So with Khabib in itself, Khabib will literally drown you. Khabib will literally wrap you. Khabib will force you into you giving him submission. With a guy like Islam Makhachev, he's constantly looking for something. He's not going in there and literally just ground and pounding. Like, he's literally looking for submissions, and he's looking to like lock something in. So when I did speak to him on our podcast, he was like, me and Khabib Star is very, very different. Khabib will drown you, he will suffocate you, and then finish you. Me, I take you down, I finish you fresh. And I'm just like, you know what? That's what he's up against. He's up against somebody that's going to go and chase submissions right off the back.
See, that's interesting. We've heard a lot now, yes, Henry, about the offensive submission prowess of Islam Makhachev. Just another feather in the cap of this just multi-layered pound-for-pound king and UFC champion. Total right now, if you like the proposition market, over 2.5 rounds, plus 124. Under 2.5 rounds, minus 160. Nick, any action for you thus far, and what do you think overall about these numbers on the main event at UFC 302?
Yeah, this is a tough fight to bet because of the pricing right now. It's hard for me to lay the chalk on Makhachev. Despite everything that Cejudo just said, I think he's correct. I think he could get this fight to the floor and end it pretty quickly. That's why you're seeing the total where it's at right now. The other side of it, though, man, Poirier's playing with house money. He really is. If he loses this fight, what's he have to lose? Nothing. The guy's a legend. He's a future Hall of Famer. He is legitly in a good spot where I think his confidence is at an all-time high. He believes in himself that he can finish this fight. And if he gets moments on the feet, which Makhachev might give him here, again, stylistic matchup here, it's not Khabib coming in there. It's Makhachev, which is willing to play on the feet a little bit more so than most, I think, opponents, or more than Khabib for sure. So I think he's going to get enough time to be dangerous enough, and that knockout power is there. Also, let's not forget, man, he's not a fish out of water on the ground. The guillotine choke from Poirier is legit. Even though we've seen people get out of it recently, it doesn't mean it's not there for the taking as well. So Poirier, ultra dangerous. I would look for a finishing prop out of anything here in this spot.
Yeah, I know some people are going to chase submission props. Others will be on the knockout side. In terms of Dustin Poirier's preparation, Henry, right? He hasn't had months, right? Like 6 months, let's say, to bring in specific guys, right? Certainly some people would suggest he's been exposed in the grappling front prior. What do you think his preparation held, at least as far as the grappling part of the game is concerned, knowing what, future contests for him have held in that realm?
Yeah, I think for him, I think he has to go for broke in the department of striking. I mean, he has, at the beginning of round 1 and 2 are the best odds that he has. He has to go for broke because, obviously, I don't know who is it that at ATT could mimic a guy like Islam, but if I'm in his position, you know what? I might as well stick to my strengths and really set things up in that nature. So I think the fact that he had that preparation, if I'm a guy like him, I'm looking to maybe focus in a little bit more on my distance and find that perfect shot. Go for broke because you're going up against this. This may be the last swan song for him officially, as he's been talking about it. So I'm looking to go for broke, and if I am somebody, if I am Poirier's coach, says we have to take risks. We have to hit this man with the unpredictability. Yeah. So he has to hit Islam with something that he's not expecting.
Dustin Poirier by knockout plus 700 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm curious, Henry and Nick, I promise I'll go right back to you after this, but if this was a straight kickboxing match, we've heard so much about Makhachev's striking prowess, right? Even though we know what he can do as a grappler, right? Henry, how do you handicap these two in a straight kickboxing match? Dustin Poirier, perhaps the power advantage against Islam Makhachev, just straight striker versus striker.
Yeah, I'm looking to probably kick his lead leg. Use that jab, throw it in there, but at the same time, I'm going to have to use movements. I cannot be in front of the wrestler who is looking to level change every time you get a little closer. So he's going to have to really play cat and mouse, and he's going to have to be the mouse in this position.
Nick, how much as a handicapper do you think, like I do, I guess as a bettor, about the intangibles, right? Fight happening in Dustin Poirier's time zone, quick turn, good form, forged by the win over Benoit Saint-Denis. How much do you think about those factors, right? Last dance, maybe, right? The newspaper headline is Destiny the next day. I promise I won't use that on the air, right? But how much do you intangibly think about this fight in terms of Dustin's potential to actually spring the upset and win it?
And that's a great question, because I think you have to look at it in multiple layers. Even from the bookmaker's perspective, you have to look at it because I think a lot of fans are kind of going to buy into that as well. But it's legit. It's real. That's what Poirier believes in. He believes in himself. He believes he can pull this off. So all of that factored into the equation. His last ride is something real, man. Momentum on your side, all-time confidence. I think positivity, mental state. I mean, again, Henry can talk about it more than I can, but if you go into a fight in the right mental state, I think that brings you just over the edge and enough for here possibly to pull off the upset.
It's just interesting. Every time I go into the DraftKings Sportsbook application, Islam Makhachev is a bigger betting favorite than he was the time that I opened the app prior. So we'll see where it ends up on Saturday night. Quickly, I do want to get into Triple C's 3 keys to victory for both Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. And then we'll get into Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa, who I know you know pretty well. But let's just start with Islam Makhachev. Ubiquitously regarded as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport right now. It's hard to see anything resembling a weakness on film. Perhaps, Volk finished strong against Makhachev in that 5th and final round, right in that first meeting in Perth. But overall, I need 3 keys to victory or success for Islam Makhachev this weekend in title defense number 3, Henry.
Yeah, the number one thing, only because Dustin Poirier's got power in his hands, is going to be his defense. If Islam can just keep his hands up and keep him close to his chin, he's going to be good. The defense is number one. Number 2 is obviously closing the distance. He's going to have to really find a way to really close the distance to Dustin Poirier, because Dustin Poirier may play the kind of mouse game as I was talking about. And then 3, obviously, we got to go back to wrestling. We got to go back to wrestling in combination of Sambo, using the takedowns, wrapping the wrist, Daggy standing style, folk style wrestling, wrapping him up, hurting him up top, and to eventually look for the finish.
And on the other side, Dustin Poirier, I know you've sort of teased some of the risk. What do you think he needs to do to spring what really would be a pretty monumental upset here, at least as far as the betting number is concerned?
Yeah, he has to bank on what he has. You know what it is? It's his hands. But could he really set the shot up? No. So number 1 is taking risks. But alongside with that risk, with using that power, could he really use that setup? Could he pretend he's going for a shot? Next, that right hand. You cannot fight Islam Makhachev conventional. You're gonna have to hit him with an unpredictability. So number 1 is taking risks. Number 2 is setting up that shot correctly, setting the trap. And then number 3 is going to be movements. It's going to be you getting the hell out the way, playing the counter mouse to eventually make this guy chase you in order for you to find everything I'm talking about. Maybe a level change overhand. Maybe a level change up kick. Something that Islam Makhachev is not expecting.
Nicely done. And see, the good news about you not yet being C4 and only being Triple C is that you only have to give us 3 on each guy. See, you become C4, then you got to go 4 deep on each fighter. Nick,
don't tell me, John.
Right? I know. C4, cannonball coming. Nick, I'm giving you $500. I'm putting you on the spot. If you're forced to make a bet on this fight, are you exploring a proposition market, right? I mean, there are point spreads now on DraftKings Sportsbook, right? You can lay 5.5 with Islam Makhachev, and maybe he wins 30-24 on the scorecards. Of course, you're getting a great price on that if you think he's going to win a dominant decision. I mentioned the total 2.5 rounds, of course, getting a plus number on the over. I mean, do you think we're getting a long fight? Nick Kalikas, put your money where your mouth is, kid. How are we spending our money on this main event at 302?
No, I think you have to shop for either Makhachev by submission or inside the distance, or Poirier. If you want to spring a little lottery ticket free roll, whatever the case may be, just a little bit of money that kind of pays dividends, is maybe the Poirier side. So if anything, I would actually look at Poirier, the knockout prop, the submission prop, or inside the distance on DK. That's kind of where I'd shop the most. If you don't like the Poirier side, though, look at the other side. And again, submission prop, maybe inside the distance prop on the Makhachev side. For me, the straight bet here is very difficult to make. It's hard for me to lay the chalk. I do believe Makhachev has enough to get this to the floor and obviously finish on the ground. So that's what's difficult here for me. But that being said, I'm not going to lay 5-6-1 on that side.
All right, I'm going to go right back to you, Nick Kalikas, as we segue to the co-main event. Sean Strickland, recent former world champion, seemingly continuing to take money, at least if my eyes are accurate. Minus 245 now in this 5-round co-main event against Paulo Costa, who is plus 200. Huge opportunity for Costa. Henry knows him exceedingly well. We'll get into all of that, but just initial thoughts, Nick Kalikas, on this co-main event. Sean Strickland trying to, at the very least, preserve his number one contender status against Paulo Costa.
Yeah, Strickland has been just so good, man. I mean, just the durability. You know he's coming to fight. You know he's going to go 5 rounds. I mean, he's championship material, and he could easily still be holding that title. We know it was a razor-thin decision. Hey, look, I was on the other side, and I take my hat off to Strickland because he's right there, and he could have easily won that fight as well. So, close fight. I have nothing but respect for him. But this is another spot where it's all about matchups. And Costa, I think, can match up really well against Strickland. These guys are both durable. This is going to be what I think is probably a longer, drug-out type of war. And again, both these guys, the conditioning is getting a little bit better. I love the spot that Costa's in his career right now. I think he's focused. I think this is the best mentally that he's ever been. We're seeing him hang out at the Performance Institute more. This is one of those spots where I think he can come in here and sneakily steal a good win and maybe move up that kind of rankings and get a title shot in the future. So it's all up for Costa, and this is a dangerous spot for Strickland. But with all that being said, the sharp money right now, market wide, the sharp bettors that are coming in on the Strickland side. That's why you're seeing the line kind of move up in his favor, because a lot of people believe in Strickland, not so much in Costa. So tough spot, but it's all benefits from Costa. I think he could possibly pull off this upset.
Interesting. There's also a 5-round component to this fight. Paulo Costa open plus 154. And depending on when you get in there right now, as of this taping, Henry, Paulo Costa plus 200 against Sean Strickland this weekend. You know him very well. Now, this is the first time we have seen Paulo Costa compete twice in a calendar year since his UFC debut year, 2017, when he competed 3 times. So I don't know what your expectations are, Henry, as you cross your fingers, but that would seem to be a very good thing that twice before June 2nd, in theory, we're getting Paulo Costa.
Oh, 100%. I think when Paulo is, and hopefully tone down a little bit of his training, because knowing him, he trains like a madman. And there's one thing about Paulo Costa is he's been developing more and more kicks, and we saw him catch Whitaker with that roundhouse. I mean, when you catch a guy like that at that level, man, if you're able to catch Robert Whitaker with a kick like that, you can catch anybody in the world. But that being said, Sean Strickland does bring that Philly style. He has gone up against guys like Israel Adesanya. He has fought tougher competition than a guy like Paulo Costa. So if the fight continues to stay on its feet, I think it's leaning a little bit more towards a guy like Sean Strickland.
Nick, as we look at the rest of this main card, some guys in that minus 250 to minus 300 range. Jailton Almeida taking on Alexander Romanov. Kevin Holland going back to 85 against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Randy Brown has won 6 of 7, only slip up in that time. In Perth against Jack Della Maddalena, he can be had minus 175 or so. Perhaps there's a prelim guy, featured prelim close on paper. Roman Kopylov, slightly favored against Cesar Almeida. Anything as we sit here midweek, Nick Kalikas, that jumps off the card here, UFC 302?
Let me just say this. This is a dangerous, chalky card because you're looking at these guys that are sitting in the mid-200 levels that can easily lose these fights. Their opponents are game, and they're competitive enough to kind of steal these fights. So be careful if you're laying chalk on this card. But I'm going to go a little bit further and look at the Randy Brown versus Zaleski Dos Santos situation here. And I think Dos Santos can pull off this upset. The guy's got thunder in his fist for sure. This is a good fight for him, even if it doesn't end by knockout, which I think is a possibility for him because he's got that much power. And if we've seen any kryptonite in the past for Brown, it's been kind of that chin letting him down at times. So I do believe that Dos Santos has enough power to come in here and get the job done. So Zaleski at around plus 145-ish or so, I think there's some value there as an underdog.
All right, and before I let you guys go, I was asked earlier today, fight of the night, in your opinion, at UFC 302. I said Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa. Now, obviously, a lot of that is contingent upon what happens before the co-main event. Some of that is contingent upon Costa's ability, in my mind, to maybe extend Sean Strickland a little bit. If Dustin extends Islam Makhachev, I think that is going to add to just a lot of heightened emotion all around. Henry, I know we like watching your videos after the fact on YouTube. Nick, what do you think is the best fight potentially that we're looking at on paper here, 1 through 12 at UFC 302?
Man, I think it's got to be Costa and Strickland. I expect this to play out. It's going to be a bloody war. They're going to be back and forth. A typical Sean Strickland fight. What we've seen as of late, man, he's in these just slugfests that come down to the wire. So I think that's what we're going to see is another co-main event kind of slugfest, an awesome fight. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I
mean, this Polish kid, Michał Oleksiejczuk and Kevin Holland, are certainly going to go at it. And I think that could be a contender for some bonus money. Henry, what do you think all told 1 through 12 here at UFC 302?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to talk about that Paulo Costa again. I agree with Nick. I think I'm just trying to figure out, John, who the hell made this fight a five rounder? If I'm Paulo Costa, and if he decided to do that, he throws a lot of power with the guy that really could maintain that threshold with the striking. So I personally feel that the person that really is going to have to make those adjustments, it is going to have to be Paulo Costa. And can he bring those kicks in? But that being said, man, Sean Strickland, there's that when Sean Strickland has that chip on his shoulder, that's when he really becomes dangerous. I think he's one fight away from fighting for the title, and who knows? Perhaps this may be the next person in line to fight for the title. But I think when Monday morning hits, Jon Anik, I know the headlines going to be Paulo Costa does this or Sean Strickland puts the fork in him. Either way, I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I cannot wait. I mean, the co-main event really does jump off the card. The main event could be absolutely fantastic, despite what maybe the betting odds suggest. And in terms of this middleweight division, you just never know, right? Seems like maybe Israel Adesanya is going to fight Dricus du Plessis in Perth, but, could Sean Strickland or Paulo Costa be there weighing in as a backup? You just never know. All right, it should be absolutely fascinating. That's it for our UFC 302 betting preview. Don't forget to check out the DK Sportsbook social tab, where you can create groups with friends and see who is having the best night at UFC 302 in real time and perhaps talk a little smack along the way. Thank you to our producer, Cody Merrow, for the great Triple C, Henry Cejudo, and perhaps the even greater Nick Kalikas. I'm Jon Anik. We will see you live on pay-per-view Saturday night from The Rock for UFC 302. Thanks for indulging us for the betting preview. We'll see you in advance of UFC 303. As a UFC announcer with a front row seat, I've been known to get pretty excited. And with this latest DraftKings offer, you can too. New customers deposit $5 and get a no-sweat bet. Get your first bet back as a bonus bet up to $1,500 if it doesn't hit. Now you're feeling it. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with the promo code, and get a bonus bet up to $1,500 if it doesn't hit. The crown is yours.